Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Mississippi Happenings Podcast. My name is David Oles, and I am your co-host. And with me is my friend and cohort and partner in crime, we could say, Mr. Jim Newman. Jim, how are you, my buddy?
I'm fine. I've managed to stay out of jail.
All right.
That's an accomplishment. And I don't know, getting started, I want to read you the cover of the New Republic magazine.
Let's hear it.
To count to 1 million without stopping takes 11 days. To count to 1 billion without stopping takes 32 years. We've got in this country 15 Americans who have more than $100 billion. To count Elon Musk's fortune without stopping would take more than 13,000 years. Now,
Oh, my.
who in the hell needs that much money?
Elon Musk. I'm sorry.
That's the problem we've got in this country right now. There's too much money in too few hands. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, let me play devil's advocate with you again.
You don't have enough money.
Aren't we a capitalist society?
We are.
Okay.
But there is a point at which you've got to balance capitalism with society. And our society is suffering. We used to be a country where there was a big, nice American dream that my kids would grow up and have a better life than I did. That's not possible anymore. It's just not possible. We are getting back to the 1920s and 10s and so forth, where we had the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, and monopolies. And if you don't think that's true, take a look at Amazon. They sell absolutely everything. And if you put your product on there, I'm told, or I have heard, because I don't want to be sued, but I know that there's the possibility that Amazon can find a distributor that'll make it cheaper.
But isn't that, the American way? One could argue Elon Musk, earned his money. He earned his money. He did investments. Now, granted, we all know he didn't come up with the idea of the Tesla. He didn't design a thing, but he financed it. So
he financed it with government money.
Okay. Why can't the average American do that too? If I had an idea, can I go to the government and get money? I don't know.
Probably not.
Understood.
But I'm a capitalist, but they need to be taxed.
Gotcha.
And they're not being taxed at a rate that allows for money to be available for schools, infrastructure, I don't care, whatever you want to call it, housing. It's just,
and
there's
and,
just,
and on that, absolutely,
There's just too
to-
much money in too few hands. Remember what I said? 15 Americans have more than $100 billion.
is Trump in that 15?
Yes.
Okay, wasn't sure.
I mean, we used to tax up to 60% or so,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's, if you talk about taxing the quote wealthy,
Uh-huh.
you raise all sorts of cane and pushback and everything else. Nobody wants to lose what they've got. And
Understood.
why? I mean, what do you do with $100 billion?
Well,
You
a
can't
lot of,
spend that in a lifetime.
but then you can give it to your kids and your grandkids and your
Well,
great
that's the problem. That's one
grandkids,
of the problems. Mm. We've
and
created generational wealth.
then there's not what the inheritance tax. I'm not sure what's the latest on what they did with that.
I'm not either.
Yeah, and by the way, for our viewers, today is just a conversation between Jim and I. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is we have some very interesting guests. From Nancy Loom to former Governor Ronnie Musgrove to uh, Republican Representative Becky Curry, and we listen. Now, occasionally, I get on my soapbox and I talk about things that really important, as well as Jim. But today, what we just wanted to do, we wanted to have a conversation between us, to let you guys know a little bit more about us, what we believe, and basically just have a conversation among us. So please indulge us with that. So that's what we're doing today. Um, so Jim, what else you want to talk about? You talked about what about the oligarchy? What is that?
The oligarchies,
Yeah,
those are the people that I'm talking about.
understood.
A couple of things that I'd really like to talk about is, first of all, I grew up in a private school, grade school and high school. My father paid for my education. Now we've got in Mississippi, as around the country, people who believe that the government ought to pay for private school education.
Hmm.
And I don't agree with that. I think if you
Why?
want to go to a private school, that's fine. You can put up your money and you can support that school and all of its facilities and teachers, etc. But public taxpayer money should not be going to private schools.
But
It
as
ought
a
to be going to public schools.
but and my kids grew up in public schools, and my grandkids are in public schools. But okay, let me once again devil's advocate here. But wait a minute. If I'm a parent and my child wants to go to a private school, I want to send them to the private school. Um, but I'm also a taxpayer. Why should my tax money be going to pay for your kid going to school? Why can't I take that money and do it for private schools? It's my money. It's my tax money.
It's all of our money. It's not just your taxes. Your taxes
Mhm,
wouldn't support one kid going to private school.
mhm.
So public funds end up supplementing whatever the costs are.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't, I don't know where this idea ever got started that public taxes ought to pay for private schools.
Mm-hmm.
It, I realize that there are some public schools that are not as good as others. And I think parents ought to have the opportunity to transfer their students to a better public school if that's necessary, particularly probably in some of the metropolitan areas where there's not a very large tax base and it's predominantly minorities. They ought to have the opportunity to send their kids to another public school. And that then brings up the problem. Why are the public schools in metropolitan areas not equal?
Okay.
Here in Lee County, when the county supervisors divide up their money to the public schools in Lee County, not Tupelo, but the public schools in Lee County, the majority of it over the past few years has gone to the northern half of the county, and the southern half, Shannon and Verona, have suffered for lack of funding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not right.
I thought it was very interesting when we interviewed Nancy Loom with the Parents Campaign. She brought out some very good points in uh, in support of, in which, people that know us and have heard us, that we are advocates and we support public education, and we do not, and we know that it is against the Mississippi Constitution. And this is something we also talked with Republican Representative Becky Curry. It is unconstitutional to take public education funds and give it to school vouchers and give it to private schools. We know that happens. Um, it does.
Oh, it does. And
Um,
they just approved another academy last legislative session.
yes. And a little history, and history is history. You can't change history. The reason why private schools came to be in Mississippi, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you think I'm wrong, the reason why private schools came about was because of desegregation in Mississippi in the 70s.
Yep.
And I think that's a fact. But, one thing that Nancy Loom mentioned is it's important for the whole state to have an educated society, not just one group. And, there's a lot to be said sometimes that Mississippi wants to keep its population uneducated, because if they're uneducated, they don't think, and they're pretty much stuck in a rut, and it's easy for them to possibly be manipulated, for uh, lack of a better word.
Well, not only that, it's a way of I hate this word, voter suppression. But
Yeah.
if you don't educate the population, they don't go to the polls and vote. So those that get college educations or get, I don't know, well educated, will be able to continue to control what's going on in the state for their own
Uh,
benefit.
and still of the subject, excuse me, of of education, there was a report in the Mississippi Today dated August the 22nd, 2025. So that was just a few weeks ago. Devna Bose, B-O-S-E, she was talking about a recent report that shows Mississippi is failing to comply with federal special education requirements in 10 categories. And this is including supervision of how well districts follow the laws and by allowing people to, with suspect qualification, to conduct dispute resolution hearings. Now, and this is a quote from Danita Monday, and she's a former Mississippi Department of Education employee, and she is an advocate for. And I had it up here a minute ago. I wanted for advocate. She is with the Mississippi FAPE, FAPE, which is Free Appropriate Public Education Defense League, and I love this. People working with it within the system have been concerned Mississippi is not compliant. And I love this quote. This is validation that what we have been saying for years. And she says, they're stepping on bugs. They've been finding out about non-compliance through complaints and writing corrective action to fix it. But they're stepping on bugs. And I would love to hear her take on special education in Mississippi, and also this 47-page report that Mississippi is not compliant. I'd love to be able to talk to her and get her thoughts on that.
That's probably not the only thing Mississippi's not compliant in. You know, as long as we're talking about this, maybe we ought to just, in case anybody hasn't figured it out yet, David and I are kind of conservatives and progressives. So I don't know how what we're talking about comes over to you, but we think it's important for all of the children. All. That means every child should be educated to the most possible potential that the state can offer.
Absolutely.
And that does not include segregating those with wealth to go to academies and have private education, but it does call on all of us to insist that our public schools are number one and that the dollars necessary to go there and that there is oversight to make sure that our kids are getting the kind of education they deserve. And apparently it is available because every year we have high school graduates that are going to the military academies, that are going to some of the Ivy League schools. And then we've got a majority, or a lot rather, that are staying at home, going to our community colleges for 2 years, and then moving on to 4 years. So a good education is available without having to go to a private academy. And it's getting to the point that it almost sounds to me like we're going backwards and starting to reintegrate society. So that's my thought.
And I'm with
Go
you
ahead,
100% on it.
Go ahead.
And I'm glad you brought up the fact that, yes, we are progressives. There are certain things that we support, and it's interesting. I had a conversation with a friend, and yes, it was through Facebook, but and he and I are pretty much on opposite ends, but it was
You
a
got
good
friends?
conversation. What's that?
You have friends?
A few,
Okay.
a few. But I had a lot more before Donald Trump was elected or before he walked down that golden whatever,
Escalator.
with, whatever it is.
I know
I had a
it's
lot
a
more.
long word.
Yeah. I had a lot more before then, but, the ones that I've lost, I don't miss a bit. But a real good friend of ours, Edward Conley, I think he lives up in New York State, but he was in Oxford for the summer, I guess you could say. And uh, uh, he did a comparison, progressive versus conservative. And this is a key areas of progressive versus conservative opposition 2025. And there's 18 specific policies. And one couple of things I do want to bring out: education. Progressives support federal oversight, funding for public education, student loan forgiveness, and equity in education. And we all know Donald Trump, along with Linda McMahon, and the conservatives, are wanting to eliminate the Department of Education, which is going to be a disaster for states like Mississippi, states that are non-compliant based on, the Mississippi Today report that I just talked about. Now, this is the education policy for a conservative. Advocate for school choice, school vouchers, reduce federal role, ending the Department of Education, and opposing student loan forgiveness. Now,
That
uh,
sounds like a Republican.
Absolutely. But and this is the conversation I had with a friend of mine. Does anybody know? Somebody tell me what a conservative is nowadays.
Well,
Is it a
I
fiscal
was.
conservative? I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I consider myself to be a fiscal conservative and a liberal social.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've got any uh, problems in either area. I want I want the federal government. Actually, what I'd love to see the federal government have to do is the same thing the states do: have to have a balanced budget. They can't
Yeah.
just keep going. I mean, we are at 37 trillion, and
And I can't
it's
even think of the figure that has gone up since Donald Trump is back in the office.
well, pick up your cell phone and try to punch in 37 trillion. It won't take it.
Got it.
That ought to tell you something.
I don't know. I don't know I don't know how many zeros that would be.
I don't either,
Um,
but we don't have, and I'm uh, no, I'm going to say it anyhow. We don't have any Democrats. Well, maybe we got a couple, but basically, we don't have a Democratic Party or a Republican Party that has any spine.
I
We
agree.
just don't.
Um, and
Everybody up there is looking out for themselves and their own reelection.
yeah.
And
Yeah, and that's sad. And the Democrats have got to do something. They've got to get off their ass. Sorry, and do something. They've got to speak up. Now's the time, and they're just rolling over. And I don't understand that. Let's get back to you were talking earlier about the tax policies. Progressive. This is what progressive support. And I'm like you. I'm conservative. You can't, as far as physical, you can't spend money you don't have.
Right.
You know, as much as I would love to, I can't do that. Tax policy, progressive. Support progressive taxation, higher rates for the wealthy, closing loopholes, and using tax revenue to fund social programs. Now, this is a conservative tax policy. It reads, favor lower taxes across the board, especially for corporations and high earners, flat or consumption taxes, and reducing or eliminating many tax credits and deductions. And that burden is on the um, middle income.
Yep.
I mean, on the middle, is there still a middle income? And I forgot the word. The middle income, the middle group, the middle. What is it, Jim?
Middle class.
Middle class. Thank you. Yeah, that 5 little word class. Um, and once again, this comes from Edward Conley, and and the other thing that scares me in Mississippi, and we've talked about this before. We talked to with Kara Roby about it, and we talked to I think Cliff Johnson about it. What is the elimination of the state income tax going to do for Mississippi?
Well,
It scares me. Go ahead.
the Democrats fought that, I believe.
Yes.
But right now, if anybody is still listening, I hope they are.
Oh yeah.
Right now in DeSoto County, we have an opportunity, we being Democrats, if the state Democratic Party would get off its ass and do something and help with some funds or people. There are 4 legislative seats that are going to be up for election in November.
Yes.
It takes 2 of them. We just got to win 2 of them to stop the supermajority in the House. Just 2. And I've been calling around to various people I know, asking them if they can spend a weekend up there knocking on doors, or if they will send money
Mm-hmm.
to DeSoto County Democrats. This is an opportunity that we haven't had in years. And to stop a supermajority is
and we may
nothing
never
better.
get this chance again for another
Yes,
10 or 20 years or whatever.
I know. And the people in DeSoto County are doing the work. They need the help. And I don't see the state Democratic Party out there really working hard to make things happen. I mean, 2 seats, 2
Yeah.
out of 4, 50%. And it's possible.
Yeah. I agree with you.
There's a potential to win 3, but it's very possible to win 2. And that would break a supermajority. And what that would mean for the state is that we would get back at least to a 2-party system in the Mississippi legislature.
It's a 2-party system is good. It's healthy. It's accountability. And there is no accountability in Jackson now. There's no, it's a free reign. And also, for our viewers, No, we do not support a candidate. We do not support a candidate on Mississippi happenings. But we do support a two-party system. Would you
Yes,
agree, Jim?
absolutely. But in this case, I'm supporting the Democrats that are running in DeSoto County because I want to stop the supermajority. When you've got a supermajority, it's like two partners in a business. If both of them agree all the time, one of them isn't needed. Well, we've got a legislature and a Senate where they both agree. On the Republican side, they agree, and they don't need any Democrats.
Yeah.
They can pass whatever they want, and that's
Mhm.
not good government.
Understood. Understood. Okay. Well, what, well, I was going to say, I was going to promote a book, but I'm not going to do that right now. It's How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them, by Jason Stanley. I'm not going to do that right now because we could talk for days about this, but this scares me and what's going on in Washington today.
How about the
What
National
else?
Guard?
Yeah. Yes. Why in the hell is Mississippi sending, and make sure I'm right on my numbers, 200, was it 200,000? I'm sorry,
200.
200.
I
Okay.
think
Sorry.
200.
Why in the hell is Tate Reeves sending, I'm asking this question to Jim because I know you're going to give me the answer and I can't wait to hear it. Why is Tate Reeves sending 200 National Guard members to fight crime in the District of Columbia?
I have no idea. When what I've heard and understand is that the crime rate in Hattiesburg and Jackson is higher than it is in Washington, D.C.
Yes, that's a
And if you're going to
fact.
send,
I read it.
and if you're going to send the National Guard to Washington, why don't you send it to your home state and let's clean up the crime that we've got here? But all I can tell you is we've got a Republican governor. He likes the president and he supports him. So I think that's the answer. And I keep hearing the stories. I try to watch various news media coverage, and in more than one media or network, which you might want to call it, I've seen the National Guards in Washington doing gardening and making DC a little more beautiful place to stay. And the National Guard is not trained. They are trained to do two things: break things and kill people. That's what they're trained to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't need that training in any of our cities.
Yes.
What we do need is that 800 billion that was cut out of the big, beautiful budget to add more police officers and put these police officers walking the streets in areas where the crime is highest.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you on that. And Trump did not ask Mississippi. Trump did not ask Tennessee, but both, and I think maybe wrong, I think it was Louisiana, but I know for a fact Trump did not ask for Mississippi or Tennessee to send them, but they did. And that's, yeah, I just don't get it. And yes, I don't have the figures in front of me, but yes, the state of Mississippi has a higher crime rate than DC. And
Well, not only that,
my guess is
we're
also Tennessee has a higher crime rate. And now, Trump is wanting to send, uh, could possibly send the um, the National Guard to Memphis, which is, an hour from you and 5 minutes away from me. Do we really want the National Guard occupying our cities? Are we becoming a police state? Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me we're not becoming a police state, but that's what it seems like to me. When you send National Guard into, and we see pictures of them and they're picking up trash. The National Guard is not, well, I don't know. I've never been a National Guard, but I would think they've got a better use for their time than to picking up trash in DC.
personally, I think the problem is we've elected mayors in so many cities who do not realize that the number one job of a mayor is to protect the people of his city.
Uh,
And that just seems to go by the wayside with an extremely large number of social issues that need to be addressed, of course. But the number one job is to protect your citizens. And if that requires more police, you hire more police and take the money out of your budget and cut the budget in other places.
But it
Otherwise,
also,
otherwise, the National Guard's going to come to your city.
but it also appears DC has a black mayor. Memphis has a black mayor.
Chicago
Um,
does.
I'm sorry,
Chicago does.
Chicago does.
LA does.
So is he saying that that all of these mayors are incompetent, or is he sending them because they're all black? Now, knowing what I read about Trump, what Trump has said out of his own mouth, I don't think he gives a crap whether about the crime rate in any cities. Only thing he cares about is that those mayors happen to be black. And I say that as an older white male. I see you thinking, Jim. What's up? Talk to me.
My thought is that DC, apparently the guard's not being properly used. But I can see if the guard comes into a city and relieves the police department of some of the duties, which would allow them to put more officers out in the crime areas, I can see how that would be beneficial.
So you're okay with Trump sending National Guard to cities?
No, I'm not. And yet,
I hear a but.
And I'm looking for words.
I'm sorry.
I don't think it could continue as it has. The numbers are coming down, and I think that, of course, is good. And I think Trump needs to wait and make sure that the numbers are continuing to come down. And if they're not, then when the next mayoral election is held, the voters will have an opportunity to speak. And if they're concerned about crime and they've got a mayoral candidate whose number one issue is crime, be it Chicago, be it Little Rock, Hattiesburg, New Orleans, Oakland, wherever, Memphis, then they have the opportunity to vote for that candidate whose number one priority is bringing down crime. And that, to me, is the way that things ought to be solved. I don't think sending the National Guard in is the way that you solve this problem, because this problem exists because of lack of education and poverty and mental health, all things that the National Guard don't have anything to do with and can't do anything about. So, no, I'm not in favor of the National Guard coming into cities, but I am in favor of those cities that are having crime issues electing mayors and police chiefs who want to protect their citizens and are willing to do whatever it takes and put the officers out in the high crime areas of their cities to bring about some justice. And then at the same time, me personally, I don't want to put my life on the line for $55,000. Police
Um,
officers need to be paid better.
Absolutely. For those that are watching, uh, and if they see me looking away, and if you see me looking, I have another laptop over here that I pull up some stuff and look at. So I'm not disregarding Jim or the
Yes,
listeners,
you
the
are.
viewers. Well, okay, but I just pulled this up, and this is violent crime in DC hits a 30-year low, and this was Friday, January the 3rd, 2025. So, and this is from the uh, U.S. Attorney's Office, District of Columbia. Now, so it doesn't make sense that that Trump is doing this to DC. I think he's only doing it as a political ploy. I think he's only doing it because the mayor of DC, and sidetrack, DC needs to become a state, but that's a whole different thing. But he's only doing it because there's a black mayor. Now, Jim, let's do this.
I want to add one thing.
Okay, go for it.
It's amazing to me that none of this came about until the Epstein files showed up and people really started demanding accountability and transparency and everything else.
Yeah.
And then he tried multiple other things, like meeting Putin in Alaska and various other things to get the media off of the Epstein files. And it
Yeah.
didn't work. And he finally got something that did, sending the National Guard to Washington, D.C. If you notice, the Epstein files have not been front and center lately. They're still hanging around, but they haven't been nearly as front and center.
And we got to
And-
get it back out to the front and center.
Yep.
We got it. But you're right.
And that, I personally, I believe that the Epstein files, release the names of everybody that took flights on Epstein's airplane down to his private island. I'd like to see who all went down there.
Yeah. And I'm like you. I don't care if Bill Clinton. I don't care if he's on there. If he's on there, he's on there. I don't care if Pope Francis was on there. You know?
Well, I would.
Well, I mean, he should be treated the same way as all of them. But release it. Release it.
They're protecting some billionaires.
Who are they protected?
Some billionaires whose names they don't want to release because it'll cause public embarrassment. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, if you got on an airplane and went down to Epstein's Island to a party, I don't think very much of you.
Yeah. And these are children.
Well,
you know, children.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I hate to, they keep talking about young adults. They're not adults. They're young girls and maybe young boys. It's absurd. And we got to forget, in a way, forget the Epstein files. Listen to the victims, but anyway, well, let's do this. I do want to kind of wind this down a little bit. I do want to thank one of our sponsors, especially today, and that's Alpha Insurance in Olive Branch. And Jim, I will turn it over to you to close this out.
Now?
Oh,
now.
Now you get the fun part that you're so much better at than I am.
I know. I can't. I know that this past 45 minutes has been the most exciting time of some of your lives. I just know that for a fact.
Absolutely.
It can't possibly be to see two clowns like us agreeing on things that maybe you agree with too. And I would like to say that the opportunity to watch these two clowns costs us money. So we could use a little bit of assistance on a monthly basis. We have to pay people to record this and then get it out. And then we don't do this dog and pony show between David and I very often. In fact, this is the first time. But when we start getting, as we have in the past, people like Jamie Barnett, Rear Admiral, and Nancy Loom and Governor Musgrove and everybody, it gives you an opportunity to hear from the people who actually are doing the work. This is an unusual show. This is us talking to each other. When we have a regular show podcast, we don't disagree with whoever we're having on. We let them talk. We let them talk about what their issues are or what their projects are. And for us to be able to do that, it costs us money. So I would ask if any of you have enjoyed today. if you've enjoyed it and have got a little bit of change around and you don't know what to do with it, I would certainly appreciate it if you'd consider sending it to Mississippi Happenings, because it does cost money to make these podcasts, and we release them generally every Tuesday. But this being a long weekend, it'll be released tomorrow. So, David, could you tell us where they can go to send their nickels and dimes or $5 bills?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see, and I have to always look at this to make sure I'm doing it right. The Cash App is the $ MS Happenings, or PayPal is the @ MS Happenings. And that is happenings with an S. So that is Cash App, the $ MS Happenings, and the PayPal is the @ MS Happenings. Also, it will send. Our website is MS Happenings. And we do want to hear from you, good, bad, and indifferent. If you something you like, please send us an email. If something you don't like, send us an email. If you have somebody you think that would make a good guest, send us an email, and it is mshappenings1@gmail.com. mshappenings, the number 1, @gmail.com. It's so important that we get information out. It's so important that we study our history. We learn from our history, and you can't change history. I mean, you just can't. As much as I'd like to change my history, but anyway. And Jim, God, we all need to change Jim's history.
Absolutely.
But we go ahead.
One of the things I was going to mention is that, yes, we're both Democrats and we're both somewhere progressive.
Yes.
I can't tell you the number of Republican legislators I have asked to come on, not to do a hatchet job, but just to tell us what's coming up in the next legislature. None of them want to come on. We're not going to question them. We're not going to disagree with them. If they've got bills they want to introduce, wonderful. Let us know about them so that we are informed about what's going on. And the public then will make their decision. Maybe they'll call a legislator. Maybe they won't. But if you know some Republicans that are willing to come on and just have a conversation, let us know, or call them and tell them to call us.
Yes.
I mean, I don't understand. Well, I really do understand the Republicans not wanting to come on. But we need to hold them to putting out what they are planning on doing in the upcoming legislature. And the only way we're going to be able to do it is through media and getting them to come forward and talk to the public. And that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. So if you know one, please let us know, or tell him or her to contact us.
And a prime example of that, and I have so much respect for this woman, and that was House Representative Becky Curry. And we had a good conversation when we're not recording, and great conversation when we were recording. And it was quite evident we are, we're far apart in politics, but we found that one thing. She is a Trump fan. That's fine. I'm a never Trumper, but we found middle ground, and that's what's so important. Um, so yes, we do want to speak to the Republicans. We do want to speak to those that don't necessarily agree with everything that we say, but it's so important to keep the conversation going. And
Yep.
with that, I am going to close and say thank you, thank you, thank you. We do appreciate it. Yes, we need donations. Yes, we need sponsors. Yes, we need subscribers. But I also do want to leave this with you as well. May we never become indifferent to the suffering of others. Thanks so much.